Hello. Hello, this is John Nathan, and I'm here to report someone's therapy is showing. And for today, we have some subject matter experts that bring their level of intelligence to their emotional awareness through storytelling and through authoring and through observing. And we'd like to bring awareness to the Duplass brothers, Mark and Jay Duplass, who bring us story of emotion. It's very different than providing the visual or creating an adventure. They really allow through their work and through their timeline of work what the observation of growth and development and change and instinct and awareness can look like through the reception of emotion or through the reception of story. And I bring them into the conversation for your therapy's showing because they were one of the first powerhouse emotion responses that I received through the process of sobriety, through seeking new type of information, specifically started from them through as a winding tree, but through Mindy Kaling, reading the introduction of their book Like Brothers, which was my bedtime story for about 2 years at the beginning of my sobriety, between that and Shakespeare for Squirrels. But understanding like their dynamic of brotherhood from themselves, their connection that's inseparable yet requires severing from time to time, or experiences that, and the way that they needed to learn to refuse or refuel and then also reconnect and rejoin. The willingness and the vulnerability of being able to express that out loud in book form and still be able to understand that there's no change in the relationship, there's a change in the dynamic. And then there also the credit to the quote that I love to misquote or paraphrase often, which is never underestimate the significance of tools you learn in therapy and how those can apply to your life and your communication and your relationships. And then to understand that being aware and cognitively flexible enough to be able to share those experiences with other people, with the vulnerability of understanding that you are just a person and that people will have idea and emotion about that. But the understanding that the reflection is always from what's inside you, not what you're trying to get from someone else. You might be working towards that, but that's not the way that emotion and response happens. And that the Duplass brothers bring a lot of information about that through the way that they tell story, through the way that communication is so real. Because then after going through their top 10 movie lists and having identified with like these boys grew up in the 90s, you can tell they love the Natural Born Killers and Raising Arizona and the type of movie that was cinema that was it was almost the precursor to comic book thinking, and the way that imagery matched the language and those types of star power back in those days were the Juliette Lewis of the world and the Woody Harrelsons of the world, who brought us the ideal version of what a what a hyper fixed version of humanity can look like. Perhaps a little over the top, perhaps a little more into the mystery and the fantasy of the worlds that can be created. And I feel like the Duplass brothers bring a good intention of understanding that that's where their mindset comes from, being able to shift what they see into a version that fits a screen, that's formatted to fit your screen, from their emotion to their visualization to what your reception is. They're masters of that craft. They're masters of that craft because that is the craft that they worked on. That is the craft that they perfected into a version that is received in a way that we view as perfection. Because I'm sure they have a lot of film out there that is not perfect, but that they understand how the human psyche emits and responds to the emission of emotion. And so to know that they're not only utilizing that and capitalizing that for their own efforts of the thing that they're passionate about, but they bring that knowledge and information to us laymen out here just listening and reading their books, going, you know what, I could be a superstar movie star, or I could be a world famous author. And I can also understand that the people who are doing that and the people who got there, even with their luck and even with their talent, get and stay there because they understand the emotional signal and response of how that navigation and awareness is in the world and in that business, and then for themselves and for the individual. It's a very broad place to be able to bring not only your emotions and your impulse and your lack thereof, but to be honest and open about that, and the way that you are able, through Mark Duplass's music and through his relationship with understanding not only his children, like the way that he's able to be cognitively flexible and aware through his parenting and his style of parenting, which is autonomy and individuality through instruction and discipline, is like in his book, when he discusses the idea of like he has a real firm idea of what this thing should be, and then his daughter made a lot of really good points. I think it was about bedtime or something. Like, I need to be able to do these things, and for him to be able to offer autonomy while offering support and discipline in the environment of his own home. He was only able to do that through the cognitive flexibility of the things that he was learning through therapy, through his relationship with his brother. And while that might have, not all of us have that level of intensity when it comes to emotional security. Like, I'm sure that there were each other's security blankets for a really long time, and that they still are, and that they understand the dynamic of what that relationship can look like and what that relationship needs to look like for them in certain moments, because they are so world renowned and so powerful and large in the effort that they've brought. These boys are like near single-handedly invented the sustainability of Netflix, and have the forethought and the foresight to be able to understand where the world is shifting and changing and adjusting. And they learned that through each other, which means that their dedication to the mental and emotional response of people, and how that response and interaction brings the inevitables of impulse and instinct and liability and instruction and discipline and necessity of those things. It's like spook scaring your horses and then knowing what to do about that when the horses get out of, and they're masters of that craft to bring a function and a end result that is a story or an imagery that we need, and that we find that we need. And I love that about their work. Like, as soon as I finished the book, couple hundred times, the way that my bedtime stories goes, I make it to like chapter 7, and then there's an extra 45 minutes that I usually catch up on like a month later, realizing that I haven't read the end of the book or heard it. But to understand then to go back through their work and be like, okay, I love every single movie that these boys love and base their cinematography off of. And so going through their own library and starting with the puffy chair and realizing like, oh my God, this is a collage, and it's a mixtape, and it's a collage and a mixtape at the same time from their own brain that they like shared in a moment, and you can feel it, you can sense it, you can taste it, like in that movie specifically. Had not seen cinema like that in so long. I did not catch that in the 2000s whenever that had first come out. So I just watched it probably like 2 years ago, and still the imagery of the idea, like I've been in those situations, I've been in that fucking van, I've been like where we had the last $5 for gas, having to get to the place, like I've been with that friend who got a fucking Yahoo Maps and we're ending up somewhere for something that was not as advertised. And to know that like they're able to bring that level of reality to emotion and still tell it in story form, that brings, because the movie was about a relationship. And then it turns into being about so many relationships. And in order to be able to navigate those many types of relationships, the thing that I think I recognize that they probably overemphasize now in their later lives is like they've known this information the whole time. They just didn't know how to apply it to each other and to their personal discipline. Whereas like Mark is the one who can go from 0 to 1,000, and Jay is usually the one who comes in and completes the task and brings the reality and brings the probably the anchor of the conversation. I've never been able to work with them. They discuss in depth like that version of how their projects come to be. But to know that like that is, and then still through the cognitive awareness and the mindful emotional awareness of the way that psyche works, is like, oh, we got to work on that. Even if it yields great results, I still got to do the same thing over and over again, which means we have to have the same patterns, which means those patterns are going to get really fucking annoying and need adjustment. And then the shift in the story and the tone and the title change into the way that you're responding and reacting. Then you become a producer, you become an executive producer, you become the guy behind the camera, or then like most of their later or mid years, they become the person in front of the camera, because they understand the skill of the relay of emotion, because they're writing it and they're directing it and they're sharing it and they're bringing it in, and then creating an entire fucking film family with that knowledge. It's got to be the most healthy environment I could imagine. I'm sure high stress, and I'm sure a lot of emotion that is not always positive. But knowing how to navigate that and knowing how to bring the alternatives of that type of process is something that I think Jay and Mark Duplass have brought from their book, Like Brothers, through all of their work, like highly recognized, like all of their work, even their friend groups and fan base and the people that understand uh, the type of offering that they're presenting, the level of production that they're able to bring, while still bringing forth the knowledge of like, hey, we're middle-aged men who need therapy. And they say it out loud and they show what they've learned and they show they describe their own experiences in their own way. And to me, like, that's not just being the leading men of this type of work through the thing that I study and am fascinated with, which is cinematography and the writing and directing of novel and story. But then to also understand not only how you want that to look, but what it does look like, how it's received, the time frame in which those stories were so necessary and so encapsulating of that moment, and then how to bring expectation to that level of result and process. So like, it's not just like I've learned what it might be like to go to Sundance and what their experience was and the way that they relate emotion and fear and trauma and scarcity of time and connection is so tangible to me. Like I feel like I wore the same flannels that they wore at the same time. And to know that that's available through people of high caliber who brought not only a level of awareness, but brought their emotion, bring all their baggage, and then say, all right, let's unpack and put it back together in a much more manageable way. And not only have we done that, but now here's the version and here's the manual of how that's done, and here's the rest of our work that shows why it's working and how it is effective for the continuance of a relationship. So, Mark and Jay Duplass, your therapy is showing wildly throughout your book, Like Brothers, and I enjoy hearing that story be told repeatedly over and over again, many nights in a row, because it offers such emotional awareness and satiation of the need to know that there is somebody else working on that type of work, and that the understanding of it's not like you get to it and complete it. It's every day. It's all the time. It's as long as you want to maintain those relationships that require this type of interaction. And to know that there's a partnership and a brotherhood and a family of well reputation of well intention, but also of success that shows the chart of how to get from not understanding but still participating into acceptance and indication of response and reaction to emotion, while still being able to navigate that type of work. It's a mindful emotional awareness that I think is worth observing and worth listening to and worth recognizing. And it's the offering of cognitive flexibility that says, yeah, that would be lovely, but sometimes we're not that, and here's how we get there. So, Mark and Jay Duplass, your therapy is showing, and I am a better man for it. And thank you both so much for sharing not only your story of your relationship and your journey into success, but how you maintain that and how it maintains you through the process of being amazing directors and writers and storytellers.